On today's podcast, because it's the end of the year and naturally we are all thinking about what the new year will bring, I want to talk to you about how change can be small and still have a big impact on your life and your business. New Year's comes with the perception out with the old, in with the New Year's comes with the perception, new year, new you. And that insinuates or implies that in order for there to be a positive shift in the new year, that there has to be this excavation of your life. And if there is no excavation of your life, you have failed, you suck, and the world is doomed. Welcome to the Heart Aligned Brand Podcast. I'm Leanne, your host, brand strategist, photographer, and mentor. This is a space where personal insights and business strategy come together to help you build a brand rooted in your truth. Whether you're navigating a rebrand, finding your voice, or just holding on to that why through the entrepreneurial chaos as you grow your business, this show is for you. Around here, we believe that building a brand isn't just about how it looks, it's about how it feels, who you're becoming in the process, and how you make other people feel. All right, so let's get into it. As I said, we are chatting and reflecting about 2025, what we want to leave behind, and what we are calling into 2026. And one of the things that's really important to me when I'm working with my clients, and I'm chatting with friends, family, is reframing this idea of change so that it feels tangible, so that it feels attainable. Because we live in a culture where there is this pressure to go all in, super hard, super fast. And if you're not doing it in that way, then it's disqualified because it's not that rah rah intense energy that we're all very familiar with. But here's what I've learned as a business owner and as a person who is on this path to become the best version of myself. Change happens gradually, and in a lot of instances, it is painfully slow. In years past, when the new year would hit, I would want to go big with my New Year's intentions. As I continue on this path and this journey, recognizing that change is slow, change is gradual, I am taking into 2026 is this continued recognition that the smallest change can have the biggest impact. So what I want to share with you today is this thought I want you to sit with as you're thinking about and creating and envisioning for 2026 is what change could you make right now to make it 5% better? Positive changes are kind of like compound interest. When you make the shift, even if it's just a 5% difference, as the days progress, it compounds on itself because you realize over time how much that little thing, that irk, was consuming your space. So it's like 5% little change, 5% better, but at the end of 60 days, it's compounded and it's now 60% better. I'm not giving you actual legitimate mathing there, but you understand what it is that I'm trying to get across. It's not just going to positively impact you because you've eliminated this thing that was taking up space and your life has gotten 5% better. What I have found is that when we remove this small thing or when we make this small shift, it opens up space for bigger shifts, bigger changes, more clarity, more consistency, more happiness, better health, and the list goes on. These tiny changes that you are making will create more satisfaction with your life. And ultimately, that is what we're all pursuing, right? Contentment, satisfaction, success, happiness. What I wanted to offer you today is real life examples where a tiny shift can have a huge impact. And we're going to go through the main buckets of life, right? Business, mental health, and physical health. Because I think putting it into perspective in each of those buckets can really help you understand how you can take this tool, this reframe, and use it for yourself as you go into 2026. I don't know if you're like me, but one of the things that I seriously underestimated is how functional organization can really make life feel so much better. There was a point in time where I was drinking a smoothie on the daily. Part of this was because I was working on my health and I wanted to up antioxidants in my diet. I was trying to instill this new habit. And every day, one of the biggest barriers to me successfully doing it every single day was the very annoying factor that the blender was inconveniently stored in our butcher block cart that we had in our apartment. There were two different levels. One level was just a flat surface, and then the other level was like a bucket surface. And the blender was sitting inside of that with other appliances that we would use regularly. And in trying to make this change, I recognized that in order to successfully do this on the daily, I needed to change the location of the blender. What this meant is that I was going to have a blender out on the counter, taking up counter space and not very pretty to look at, but functionally, it was going to serve the change that I was trying to instill. 5% effort to make this change. All I had to do was make a space on the butcher block. I unraveled the cord. My partner, being wonderfully great, made it so that I could keep the blender plugged in to the outlet that was on the wall so that I could very easily keep up with this daily routine of having a smoothie. So simple, and yet a massive impact, not just on my nerves, which were getting grated every day. I was fighting to get the blender out and set it up and then put it away, but also on the health benefits. So thinking about functional organization and something that maybe you're taking for granted that really does get on your nerves, is there a way that you can eliminate it? We've got the life example down. Let's talk about business. In a recent embodied business circle that I host monthly locally here in Pittsburgh, one of my friends and clients was talking about how she's often asked to come to an event and speak for an organization or in front of someone's audience. These people approach her with the premise of, come and do this. This is great exposure, and this could lead to potential business. But for my friend, oftentimes she feels very frustrated. She doesn't know those people's audience. This is a work for her to come and put on these workshops and to talk about what she does. And she doesn't know if these people are going to be her ideal client. So during our conversation, one of the things that she came up with was, I am going to just automatically charge or say that I'm going to charge for this. But one of the biggest struggles that she had for the longest time was she didn't have a plan for how to respond to these inquiries. And what would end up happening is someone would ask her, and then she would ruminate over this for days, weeks, and then feel bad because she didn't know how to respond in a way that felt aligned with her values, what she needed, as well as respecting them and clearly setting a boundary. By setting that clear boundary with herself on what her rate is for hosting workshops and knowing that she's not going to offer these workshops for free, this clears up a lot of mental headspace and energy that was going toward feeling frustrated, confused, and overwhelmed. Taking it a step further, we actually practiced how she could respond to people in real life or via email when people are requesting this from her. So simple, so small, and yet the impact that that's going to have on her energy and her business long term is exponential. And I actually checked in with her and she said, I literally feel so relieved now that I know that this is how I'm going to respond and that this is my rate. Is there something in your business right now that you could think back on over the past year that you could take 10, 15, 20, 30 30 minutes to change? and just be okay with it. Let it exist. Let it free you up. What could that be? And now let's do it. Okay, let's talk about mental health. Mental health is so important because as a small business owner, as a solopreneur, if you're struggling, your business is impacted. There is just no way around it. And even if you have a team, your business can be impacted. So we can't avoid life situations that thrust us into turbulence or sadness, grief, loss, all of those things that we all experience at one point or another in our life. But I'm talking more on the day to day. How are we managing? And years ago, when I decided to go all in on my business, I worked with a business coach. I've talked about this many times. And she recommended to me this thing called the hour of power. 20 minutes journaling, 20 minutes of movement, 20 minutes of reading a book for professional development or mindset perspective shift. One of the things that she said to me, in order to build a business that is going to succeed, you have to first start by working on like you. And no one wants to hear that because people want to just be able to dive in and like do the thing and make the money and it to be successful. But in my experience, the only way that we get to where we want to be is through the excavating of our ship. And one of the best ways to do that is through mindfulness, journaling, meditation, through instilling healthy habits in our life that help us get tapped into our higher self. But here's the thing. I wholeheartedly feel that the culture around mindfulness, meditation, physical activity, mental health related positive things is often fed to us as one more to do where we're not doing it right and we're not doing enough of it. And about 5 years ago, when I really wanted to start getting more into like mindfulness and being more aware of like my experience, what I challenged myself to do was take 1 minute and I set a timer 3 times a day where I just checked in with myself. I paused, I felt what was in my body, sort of assessed where my head was at, where my energy was, and I let that be a part of my experience. That 1 minute, 3 times a day turned into more presence. I'd be walking through the hallway, going into the kitchen, and I would catch myself being aware of my energetic state, not from a place of complaining, not from a place of exhaustion, but more of, oh, I am feeling depleted. I am feeling overwhelmed. What is happening? And that turned into just being present with the moment. We all have a minute. And mindfulness, meditation, presence doesn't have to look like sitting on a yoga pillow with our fingers in a meditative pose and our eyes closed. Yes. Do we want to aspire to get there? Absolutely. But if you're just starting, giving yourself something that's attainable, something that's doable, something that's going to be ingrained in your day to day, that is where to start because we're going to be way more likely to stick to that, which will lead to bigger, more intentional chunks of time that we carve out. But it's okay to start small. If there's one thing that you could incorporate in your life starting tomorrow that would benefit your mental health, here are a few different suggestions. One is doing 1 minute multiple times in the day of just mindfulness, just being present in your body. You could pick a daily routine that you have and you could practice being mindful during that moment. When you're brushing your teeth, maybe when you're going to the bathroom, when you're washing the dishes, just being present. I know that this sounds so simple and so just like duh, but in my experience, when I have done it, I have been surprised at how often I'm not present, how often I'm not in that actual moment. A couple other recommendations is you could, at the end of your workday, you could set a timer and you could just write down one thing that you feel really good about that you did that day. Before you start your work day, take 3 to 5 deep breaths and then just chant a mantra to yourself and say, today's going to be a good day. I know that whatever comes my way, I'll be able to figure it out. Small but mighty. Okay. And last, let's chat about physical health. This is the one where I struggle the most because of trauma. For the longest time, being present in my body felt very unsafe and uncomfortable. I learned to operate and protect myself living very cerebrally. But as we get older, that doesn't really work out. If you want to be able to have vitality, to have energy, to feel invigorated. And so, physical health for me has been one of the bigger challenges. But just like I am telling you that small shifts can have a big impact, it is the exact same way that I am approaching physical health, because this one is such a challenge. I honestly feel that this is where I have learned to be the most patient with myself when it comes to creating lasting change. As you're thinking about your own areas of life where you have been able to kind of implement shifts changes in an easier, you will also have a category where it's much harder for you, which I would really love to know which one you struggle with most. Leave me a comment below. Let me know that I'm not alone in this. So, physical health. Where have I made changes to create the impact? So, let's get into it. Physical health. Where can you make shifts and changes? Small. The very first change that I can remember intentionally making is choosing to drink a glass of water first thing in the morning. So simple, and yet massive benefits. There are so many people that I know who are not drinking enough water. And having one glass of water first thing in the morning, it's a nourishing and positive way to love on your body. Another shift that was much easier for me than it may be for some people is making sure that I don't scroll on my phone before going to bed. You might be thinking to yourself, how does this connect to physical health? When you scroll before bed, your brain is getting activated, the dopamine it's hitting, you may be doom scrolling, it's affecting your energetic state in a negative way, and ultimately it's going to affect the way that you are sleeping. And there are nights where I very intentionally decide that I'm going to not follow that rule and I will scroll before I go to sleep. And without a shadow of a doubt, my sleep sucks because my brain is going ping, 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 ping. All the shit that I was watching prior to going to bed. Small but mighty shifts. So let's round this out. Let's finish it up. What I want to leave you with is that you can change your life for the better. You can create more satisfaction for yourself without having to overhaul your entire fucking life. It can be as simple as drinking a glass of water a day, 1 minute of mindfulness 5 times a day. It can be as simple as clearly outlining a response to a request and practicing how you're going to say it so that you don't have to think about it, so you don't have to doubt yourself. These little changes can have a compounding effect for positive change in bigger ways that we can't underestimate. So, what are you going to leave behind in 2025? What 5% change can you make that is going to exponentially make 2026 better? Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate you. This is going to be the last podcast of the season of the year. We're going to take a small little break to recalibrate, and I will see you back here in February 2026. As always, remember, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and you've got this dang thing.